Coming up, a Sad Styles production.
Get into it.
Yoshi. Let's say something about Yoshi.
Okay.
This is our creative process. I don't know. Say something about Yoshi.
What's the game?
Yeah.
Yoshi? Okay, so Andrew, Yoshi.
Yeah.
Species of dinosaur.
Yoshi's a person.
Yoshi is, well, first of all, definitely not a person.
Okay.
Yoshi is an animal. A dinosaur, in fact. And not just the name of a singular dinosaur. This is a species of dinosaur.
The species of that green dinosaur is Yoshi.
Yes. I feel like Nintendo really didn't think their naming processes through. Like, you got the Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
That's the typical
Mario.
Do you have, is it Yoshi the Yoshi?
Is it?
That's a good question, Andrew.
We need to meet another Yoshi.
We need to meet
and then
another
find
Yoshi.
out if they have another
Andrew,
name.
I'm so glad you said that.
Oh
Because
my
come
God.
on stage.
I'm not the father. And welcome to the Retrograde
Podcast where we remind you what you used to love and whether or not you still should.
My name's Andrew Bascom, and with me, as always, is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Michael Aaronworth.
Oh, very good. Yes. Your famous Yoshi impression.
My famous Yoshi impression.
It's very
And
good.
I gotta say this off the top.
Okay, please do.
Guys,
Uh-huh.
I get it. I got a great Yoshi impression.
Right.
Get off my dick.
Yeah, everyone just won't
Leave
stop.
me alone about it.
They're hounding you, the paps outside.
I'm sitting down for dinner, my phone rings. Listen, I've never answered it, but I'm assuming it's from you guys out there asking me to do a Yoshi impression.
Right.
Don't do it.
You got to say the line everywhere you go. You're in the grocery store line, and people are like, say the line. Say the line, Mikey.
Yes. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like,
I'm in the line. I'm not going to say the line. And that makes them laugh.
Yes, very
yeah.
good.
They like that a lot.
No, they do that one of those. Okay, seriously, so say the line.
Well, listen, let's toe the line, Andrew, because today we have a 30th anniversary on our hands. It's Yoshi on the NES, not Yoshi's first ever appearance in video games, but it's a prominent one. The first ever self-titled. This is self-titled, self-produced.
An autobiography.
An autobiography of Yoshi. Nintendo went to them. They're like, Yoshi, first of all, we get it. You're a dinosaur. Secondly, gonna need a biography on Shigeru's desk stat.
Yeah.
And Yoshi's like, okay. And puts this together.
Right.
This isn't a fucking biography.
But then at the last minute, unauthorized. And you're like,
Oh,
whoa,
wow.
Yoshi,
Wow.
what was in this that you didn't like?
That's a good question. It's like
man.
the Tiger Woods one all over again. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
That one kind of came and went,
I
eh?
kind of did. I feel like a lot of content comes and goes now.
Yes.
Where it just doesn't land the same way.
Yeah, I agree. Just like the moon landing never happened. We can move on from that.
I'm sorry, what now?
Listen, we want to keep this first portion a little bit short because we've got an interview coming up that I'm super excited about. We've got Barry Carenza coming on board from Premium Edition Games. We're going to interview him about, look, he's got some experience with Yoshi as well. He played the game. We're going to do that after the typical gameplay portion that we provide space for, but he's also got a ton of experience with retro games. He considers himself an historian of the medium. Many other people consider himself to be a historian of the medium as well. It's not
It's just him
walking
and him
around.
alone.
Yes.
And and
like-
actually very, very disputed among other people.
Yes.
No.
It's like how I consider myself an expert of Yoshi impressions.
Yes, I consider myself a good lovemaker. But people don't really agree with me. So,
People.
well, yeah, I've had
For
more-
me, it's person doesn't really agree with me. And that person is me.
It's funny. Your other partner's like, you're not bad. And you're like, no, I'm not good.
I
at
hold
all.
myself to a higher standard than you. Oh God, what's going on?
Oh God, you're
here?
leaving again.
What's
oh
going
no.
on here? Well, listen, a lot of people held Yoshi to a higher standard than this game. It was notoriously not a very popular, well, it was popular in terms of sales, but in terms of overall reception was not as high as it could have been for a game that Nintendo was involved with directly.
And that's why you come to the Retrograde podcast.
That's why you come, because we're going to set the record straight.
Yes,
We
exactly.
should be called the Retrograde podcast. And in fact, we shouldn't be called that because I can barely say it.
just by you saying it once made me think, yeah, we should not say that.
Yeah, I'm going to forget that I ever did say that. Good. But you know what someone did say? Something very nice about the podcast recently.
that's nice of
As we like to do every so often, we don't spend our entire lives looking around iTunes for new reviews and stuff, but every so often we want to check in, take a look at some of the reviews that people have left us and read them on air.
Oh,
Give
that
you
sounds
maybe
great.
a little bit of an incentive. We'll shout you out. From iTunes or Apple Podcasts, we got Plasma Snake 64.
Plasma snake.
A great name.
I love it.
Wait a second. A plasma snake?
Yeah.
That sounds like a penis.
It does kind of sound like a penis. Is it a
64.
penis? Plasma.
Is it 64 inches?
64 bits.
Bits.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Great host chemistry, funny banter, and interesting takes are what you'll get if you subscribe to this show. Their Patreon also has some great deep discussions on recent video games and pop culture topics and is totally worth the monthly donation. Be sure to follow their sister show, Horsecast, for all of your needs on horse-related topics. If you're new to this podcast, well, oh boy, you're not going to understand what that means. But thank you so much, Plasma Snake 64. Once again, if you're out there listening and you haven't had a chance to give us a rating and a review yet, Spotify allows rankings. They're just star rankings out of 5, but also make sure to go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and a review. It goes a very long way. We've heard from a lot of you on social media about how you're happy with the new format of the show where we don't include the gameplay. That's over on our Patreon, as was mentioned by Plasma Snake 64, $5 a month.
Do we have to bleep that, Plasma Snake?
Oh, it sounds dirty.
It sounds dirty. Do I have to bleep it?
Freaking dirty.
Because that might be the dirtiest thing we say all episode.
I can't.
Plasma Snake.
Plasma Snake. I can't imagine we're going to say anything dirtier than that. Although I think I did say get off my dick earlier.
You did say get off your dick. You actually just went right at it. You
went
said
right
dick.
at it. Well, let's go right at this. Look, we are the Retrograde Podcast. If you're new, thanks for listening.
I love you.
What we typically do on the podcast is we take a look back at the games that we used to play when we were kids. Usually it's something we had an affinity towards one way or another. We give the games a ranking out of 4 bits based on our memory of the game. Then we play the game and give the game another ranking out of 4 bits, which is our perception of the game as it holds up in the modern day. Today's game, obviously, 30th anniversary of Yoshi on the NES, and that is the game we're going to be talking about here. By the way, do you know what Yoshi's real name is?
No.
This is not a trick question.
No, I thought
it's
it was.
a tricky question.
It is,
but it's not a trick question. Yoshi's real name is T. Yoshisaur Munchakoopas.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
It's true.
Honest to God.
Say it back to me, Andrew.
No.
Say it back to me.
Yoshisaur.
You're wrong.
T. Yoshisaur Munchakoopas.
Andrew, that is 100% correct.
Wow.
Very
Munchakoopas, Nintendo, man, it's really like almost a Kojima property because they've never known anything to be too on the nose.
That's true. That's true.
Munchakoopas.
Munchakoopas. They couldn't, technically they couldn't.
He's Greek?
It's Greek. It's Greek.
Oh.
You couldn't be on the nose with Mario because he didn't have a nose.
Well, that's fair, right? Yeah, he didn't have a nose.
But he did have a mustache, and everyone with a mustache.
Watch out for it.
Watch out for us. Leave your kids out of it. Look, it's a puzzle game that came out on in North America June 1st, 1992, hence the 30th anniversary on the NES and the Game Boy Color, or the Game Boy as well.
Wait, okay, I need to pause here.
Yes.
So wait, his name is Yoshisaurus.
Oh, you're still on this?
Yes, okay. I'm sorry. It's now just, I'm breaking down phonetically in my, it's like I'm doing a spelling bee and I'm like, use in a sentence, please.
Yes.
What's the origin of this? But the species of dinosaur in these games is Yoshi.
Yes.
And he is Yoshisaurus.
Yes.
So that's like my name being Human Man Andrew Bascom.
No.
T Human Man Andrew Bascom.
I will say this. What do you call the giant dinosaur in Jurassic Park?
A T-Rex.
Right. And what is the full name of that?
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Right. So it's a shortened, Yoshi is a shortened colloquial term.
Yeah, but if the T-Rex's name was Carl, I wouldn't call him Carl
Oh, you're saying because, well, so that's where the misunderstanding is, or we don't know. Is Yoshi's name Yoshi, or is it just a Yoshi?
Right.
Right.
Well, that's what I was hoping you'd give me an answer for.
Oh, Andrew, I have no answers.
Okay. Well,
no
then,
such answers.
I'm so sorry I brought this up and interrupted you. Please continue.
Maybe our guest later on will have,
maybe he will
have an answer like that for us. As I mentioned, it's a puzzle game. It was developed by Game Freak.
Really?
Game Freak of Pokemon fame. Now, Andrew, give me your Yoshi impression.
Yoshi.
Interesting that Yoshi says their own name.
Hello.
Is there a parallel universe in which Yoshi is a Pokemon?
Wow.
Right?
There is something to this.
Interesting.
Wow.
Now, I mean, Yoshi existed before Game Freak got their hands on it, but maybe this was incredibly influential for them, right?
Also, calling an animal by the type of animal it is and not giving it a name.
That's it, right?
Right? Pikachu wasn't named...
Right, Pikachu
Leonard.
is a Pikachu, but it's also named Pikachu.
It's not Leonard the Pikachu, it's Pikachu.
Well, but when you play Pokemon, what do you name your like what do you name your Diglets?
What do I name my Diglets?
Yeah.
Plugs.
Donglet.
Had to get it in there. Plasma snakes.
That's Ekans.
Yeah.
No, it's
Onyx.
What's plasma backwards? You get the joke.
Ass slap? No, ass
slap. Ass slap the plasma snake.
Oh, God, we're getting silly here, guys.
Welcome to the Retrograde, the Retro Video Game Podcast.
No, Retrograde. Sorry. Retrograde.
Produced by Shigeru Miyamoto. The gameplay is it's a falling blocks game. Every time Nintendo was like, we got to put a game in there on the NES. We don't know what to do. It's using another character from the Mario universe.
Yep.
It's a puzzle game.
Yep.
You could take that to the bank.
Yeah.
This one, there's 4 columns. Don't you fucking dare let those things hit the top.
Absolutely not.
You know,
top is bad.
Top is bad.
Top is bad.
Bottom's good.
Bottom's good. Bottom's real good.
Bottom's up. Now you're talking.
Yeah, power bottoms.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I like that.
That's what is real though.
Now you have to, basically the game is, there's a single player and there's a multiplayer version of it. The single player is very bare bones. It's very bare bones. There's a type A, type B. Type A is where you have to beat different set pieces. Type B, it goes on forever. So far, I'm not saying anything that is outrageously breaking the mold here, right? That's because this game doesn't really do that. I'm not sure what your memories are with the game. I don't believe you've played it.
I have not played it,
right?
no.
So when we get to our reviews, you're going to be giving it a ranking based on what you think you would have thought of it had you played it as a kid. I had a very limited experience with this game, and I think that's because it was so simple. I kind of played it and forgot about it almost immediately, but it is available on Nintendo Switch Online, so go give it a shot if you haven't played it yet. Mario mans the columns at the bottom of the playing field.
Okay.
So you've got him almost like he's literally spinning plates. You've got the 4 columns, and Mario, you press A on any 2 columns and he swaps them, which means you can kind of move the columns from point A to point B.
Oh, that's cool.
The blocks are monsters, and they fall at different areas in
What are we talking?
the
Draculas?
playing space. Definitely Draculas. You got a mummy or two.
Mummies, werewolves.
You've got a lot of werewolves.
Dr. Frankenstein, and not Dr. Frankenstein's monster. I'm talking about the scientist.
There's a lot of scientists going on here. Yeah. You've also got who's the guy who said I am death? I am become death?
I am become death. What is going on now?
The destroyer of worlds. He was involved in the Manhattan Project. I can't remember what his name was.
Robert Oppenheimer?
Could have been Oppenheimer.
Yeah, well, he invented the nuclear bomb.
Good invention. You think he patented it?
Do you
think that patent's opening? Is that expiring soon? Can we get in on that?
Oswald, or what are we doing here? You heard about the Robert Oppenheimer movie? I'm not even joking.
You heard about this? You heard about this?
Yeah. Jay Leno's back. Hear about this Christopher Nolan movie? Robert Oppenheimer? It's literally 40 people in this movie, and you know every single one of them.
Oh, wow.
They released like a picture of like the
Cast
cast list, and you're like, oh my God, I know every single person in there.
That's it. No, I haven't.
Every single white English actor you've ever seen in your life, you're like,
a lot of Colin Firth. Just a lot of Colin Firth.
Colin Firth is a whole left column.
Colin Firth.
Colin Firth.
Well, look, if you were a column in this game, Mario might swap him if you noticed there was another Colin Firth falling from the top of the playing field, because all you got to do is match up 2. Usually it's 3 in puzzle games, right?
Yes.
That you match up.
Yes,
But
like
you
a
just gotta-
tic-tac-toe situation.
Yeah, exactly. You got to match up 2 monsters. That'll get the monsters to disappear. There's also an ongoing thing where you can have Yoshi eggs. There's a top and a bottom. If the top falls into the playing field with no bottom there, it explodes. But the bottom you can kind of set anywhere you want.
And forget.
Set it and forget it. And if you get another top of an egg, whether or not there are monsters in between the bottom of the egg, if you put the top of it on, it'll kind of like crush.
Nothing in between.
Nothing. There can be things in between.
Can be things in between.
And that'll give you. That's kind of like the version.
Sandwiching it.
Yeah, you're sandwiching it exactly, and putting it in an egg, which is interesting because usually things hatch from eggs. It's curious.
It's a reverse egg.
It's a reverse egg. That's sort of like the Tetris of this game, and that's about as extensive as it gets. It's similar though. You know, we played Wario's Woods a few weeks back.
Oh yeah,
and an interesting thing Nintendo does with these puzzle games is they have a playing field where the whatever has already fallen into the playing field is manipulated by a character in the bottom. In Wario's Woods, it was Toad. In this, it's Mario, or in 2 players, it's Luigi.
but like Toad really like kicking stuff and
Picking up whole columns, dropping them, booting it.
doing real yeoman's work there.
That was way more complicated than Yoshi.
Oh, okay.
And you'll feel it, I think, pretty quickly when we play it. As you know, I don't know that there's too much more to say about the actual gameplay itself. It's very cut and dry. I don't imagine we're going to be playing this game very long because we're going to get the hang of it fairly quickly.
Okay.
I didn't play it very long as a kid. As I mentioned, you didn't have much experience playing it as a kid either. But there's one interesting little bit of this, because obviously this is a Game Freak game. Game Freak went on to do massive things with Pokemon.
It's just a little Game Freak.
You little fucking Game Freak. Speaking of power bottoms.
Oh my God. We heard your real tone come out there and it made me uncomfortable.
Can we edit this out? What's happening here?
Oh God.
Why is Mikey turning as red as Andrew's shirt?
We had an honest moment there.
Game Freak had apparently been begging Nintendo to be able to make games for them for a long time. They wanted to make some of the bigger games, and Nintendo said, do some of the smaller stuff, and then maybe we'll throw you a Cubone one day later. But the director, Junichi Masuda, in a 2019 interview, a video that was released, was talking about the development of Yoshi. And one thing stuck out to me in this interview, which I find strange. He said that he tried to convince Nintendo to allow them to use a, quote, realistic Yoshi voice in the game. And I have no idea what that means.
The dinosaurs roar?
Is it a dinosaur's roar? Is it a human being saying Yoshi? Is it the Yoshi word? Like, he just didn't expand on it. And I felt left cold. I wanted to know what he was... Yeah, realistic.
What a weird word to use when it comes to
That's it. Maybe it's a translation issue. I don't know, but
maybe
still.
Authentic?
Authentic. No,
is that different? Yeah.
No.
Realistic, yeah. Just imagine you hear both. You hear like the rah, like the huge, deep, scream of a T-Rex, and then you hear like, "Hi, I'm Yoshi," and you're like, and he could be either.
Oh, I said it again. Shut up.
Yeah, God, you gave them what they wanted.
All right, let's get it clean so you can use it as your fucking notification again.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yoshi. Just kidding. I'm not giving you that shit.
Yeah, he's real.
That's why I'm the bad boy of podcast.
he's negging you.
Nintendo was negging their fans when they brought this to release, because obviously the Nintendo Entertainment System wanted Yoshi to be on it in some capacity. They couldn't put Super Mario Brothers on it, which was Yoshi's first game. So they put this on it as a puzzle game. But day one sells 500,000 units in Japan. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Day one. It continues to sell, not the most massive seller, but was a, kind of a staple. There is one game titled Yoshi, and that is this game. I believe it was actually called Mario and Yoshi in Japan, but we got it in North America as just Yoshi, June 1st, 1992. And 30 years later, the two of us sitting down to play this game, Andrew.
Look at us.
Because you don't have any experience having played it back when it came out, we're going to save our reviews until after, when we bring Barry on.
Nice.
Barry's actually going to give his impressions of the game as well. We're going to talk to him a little bit about his history with games, premium edition games, as well as his score too. So he's going to have to sit through our crazy awards process, and he's going to love every fucking moment of it. Very excited to bring Barry on. As I mentioned, are you ready to get into the gameplay of this, Andrew?
Absolutely. So once again, to join us for the gameplay, go to patreon.com/Retrograde Podcast. Our Patreon, $5 a month. Help support the show and support us doing what we do. We love you. Go watch that. And if you don't, we'll see you in about 30 seconds as we go talk to Barry.
2 shakes of a Yoshi's tail.
Yoshi. Pretty good.
That was Andrew, not me.
That was me?
That was you.
I didn't even know. That was so organic. I didn't even know. That
Yeah,
just
your
came out of
eyes
me.
rolled back in your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Andrew, your eyes are bleeding again.
Oh, man. Oh,
Andrew.
God. Oh, God.
Okay, we got
God.
it. We'll clean that up before the gameplay. Just a reminder that you can now find our gameplay segments where we play through a portion of today's game and provide video commentary while doing it over on our Patreon, patreon.com/The Retrograde Podcast. Join the Mushroom Club for $5 US per month for access to all the gameplay, plus 2 to 4 bonus episodes per month where we do things like character drafts, top 10 lists, and even take some suggestions from our community. So show some support to the podcast by joining the Mushroom Club at patreon.com/The Retrograde Podcast for access to bonus content and all of our gameplay segments. We'll see you guys on the other side.
And welcome back to the Retrograde.
Hey, well, that was a game.
Yeah, that was a game.
That was a game indeed. We played. Listen, I think we've had a pretty good string of gameplay segments recently. Last week or 2 weeks ago being quite different with like Max Payne 3. That's something we could have played for hours and hours
Very
and hours.
different game.
We played 2 rounds of Yoshi, and immediately after playing it, we kind of looked at each other like, well, what more do we do now? I had to like beg you to come back and play another round.
Third round, and then we played a single game.
And then we played a single game, and I think that single game went well. I think I showed off my skills and talents,
You
and
did.
you were pretty impressed.
Yeah,
right,
honestly,
Andrew?
it was a big excuse for you to just show off for a bit. And mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished indeed. Speaking of last week's episode, Tom Cruise in Top Gun. Mission accomplished. That's like a Mission Impossible kind of thing.
I need an excuse to talk about him.
I need an excuse to introduce our guest. We mentioned this before we went to the gameplay, but we're joined now by Barry Carenza of Premium Edition Games at Hawk Hellfire on Twitter. Barry, you and I have been going back and forth on Twitter, back and forth. We've been going at it, trying to set up
like a schoolyard, and
like
everyone's circling you, and they're cheering.
But Barry and I aren't very much into the fight. We more posture, so we're just kind of like, where's the flagpole again?
Ended with hugging.
Hugging, indeed. Barry, thanks for joining us. It took us a while to schedule this, but we wanted to do a game that was available on the Nintendo Switch Online. You're obviously a big Nintendo fan as well, and you've got a great experience in Premium Edition games, which I want to get into into in a little bit. Barry, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with games and retro games before we get into it?
Sure. Thanks first off so much for having me. It was definitely not a schoolyard fight. We circled, but we, like you said, it ended in hugs, and obviously we made everything work, which is just truly special and spectacular. So my history with retro games, starts before they were actually retro games. They were current games,
Yes.
They were just games, I started on the Atari 8-bit and the Commodore 128, and before Nintendo was even a thing in the video game industry outside of, the TV color game, which we didn't get over here. But I just fell in love, right away. My dad was really involved in it, and my uncle was really involved in it, so that love passed on to me. And it was one of those things where I always wanted to play games, and like the whole meme with the oh, I want this, well, you have this at home, and then this at home. I always wanted a Nintendo when it came out, and my mother was always like, oh, you have that at home, and I was the Atari.
Not the same thing, Mom.
Not the same thing. I want the Nintendo. So like my whole life, my mother was like, oh, you got to get good grades. That's more important than video games, and always like prevented me. Like I had a Tiger LCD handheld before I had an NES, and like I played that Mega Man 3. Like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever because it's all I had. So when I finally got to that point where it was like I can actually afford video games and I could, play them outside of going to my friends' houses, I just like, I'm getting all the games. So
I remember that was a huge moment as like a human being, was realizing that like you didn't have to wait for a birthday to get a new video game. It was just like, oh, I can do this whenever I want. And now it's gone so far the other way with me, where like I'm constantly buying games and I have no time to play any of them. Yeah. But for me now, it's just like buying the game is the equivalent of playing it to me. That's what I'm looking for. It's, like,
it's true. Back in high school and stuff, and thankfully I played more in the N64 than the PlayStation. So those droughts didn't affect me as much because I got a game of marking period and, for good grades or Christmas or birthday, stuff like that. Sure. And you played those games. Like you played through them multiple times because that's all you had. Like you just had to keep playing them. And you really appreciated. But obviously once you can purchase, then it wasn't about, the new Zelda's coming out, how can I afford this? Or how can I figure out a way to do chores to get it? It's like, hey, I can just buy it. And you're right. That's the polar opposite. Now it's buying too many games and not having enough time to play them because as you get to adulthood, you have more responsibilities. But my love for gaming not only was playing, but also researching in history. Sure. And I became kind of a historian on it. And I'm good friends with Leonard Herman, who wrote the Phoenix series of books. And we go back and forth all the time. We love the obscure, the stuff that's there's no documentation on, and it's often forgotten about, the oddities, and it's become like one of those passion things for myself to collect them and find them. And sometimes the journey to find a beyond rare system that had like 8 releases,
what is
more
the
fun.
most rare thing that you have in your collection?
I would say probably. It's on Nintendo. It's probably the Hilton family on the PlayStation Portable.
You own a family?
I don't own a family.
You own a whole family?
A whole family. Whole family.
You're not allowed to do that. Where in the United States are you?
I wouldn't do that. Don't dox him. Don't do that. Give him a chance to complain.
But that's one of those interesting oddities in the history of gaming, because it was only shipped to Hilton Garden Inns, and it was a training game. It's officially because UMDs were only produced by Sony, so it's an official release in America, but it was never sold at stores. It was only shipped to Hilton Garden Inns, and for some reason they had the hotels. Yeah, it was a training. How to fold the beds, how to do the housekeeping, how to do the front desk. All this stuff is a PSP game, but they were so protective about it because they didn't want this falling into people's hands that they not only did one safeguard to the game, they did 2. So if you happen to find the UMD and you put it in your PSP, you can't play the game because it's missing files. Those files are on a special memory stick that was given to the Hilton Garden Inns as well. But as I've learned, you also that's not enough. So if you have the memory stick and you have the UMD and you put it into a PSP and try to load it up, you still won't be able to because it's missing one more file that's loaded onto the system itself. So you need the exact system that was sent to the Hilton Garden Inns to play
Jesus.
it. That system is a PSP 3000 black. You can't distinguish it from any other black PSP 3000. So there's so few of the complete versions of this still in existence because many of them were either tossed out or when they stopped using it, they gave it to a worker to bring home to their kid, which probably got destroyed or lost. And I mean, there could be some out there and you just have no idea that it's a special one. So
Jesus.
I love stories like that.
Hiding. Like, what is so exclusive about this information? Like
don't know.
These are the hospital corners we go with at the Hilton
Do
Hotel.
they own families?
I don't know, maybe they do. It's just an interesting thing. And there's more of these training programs. McDonald's had them on the DS. There's 2 cartridges on the DS in Japan that teach you how to do, McDonald's burgers and fries and test you and do like the little informational videos you get when you go into a new job.
I'm
but
so
on the
sorry.
DS quality.
No. That's called Cooking Mama. That's a whole different thing. That's just a game
it's
called
not.
Cooking Mama.
No, it's not. Cooking Mama is completely different.
Cooking Ramen.
On the CDI, there were ones from like Burger King and like I think like BMW and stuff did things for the CDI. There's a lot of these. It's like a weird rabbit hole to go down, and it's just a gaming oddity, something I love. So I went down that rabbit hole.
I want to make fun of that and go like, well, that's so silly that these companies spend all this money playing this game, but it's also adorable.
Really cool.
Like that's really cool that they tried to reach out to people and go, no, this will appeal to you and this will help your learning within the job or whatever.
Yeah, that's the baffling thing to me. It seems like a crazy decision to associate yourself with a console, but not just like a line of consoles, like a specific generation of console. Like if I'm managing a company, I'm not going to limit the training. No, I said if.
Oh, okay, sorry.
If no one would let me manage the company,
no.
because I would probably make this decision, which is let's dump all of our training tactics and resources into a console that we don't even know if it's going to succeed.
Yeah.
And it turns out the PSP didn't have an incredibly long lifespan.
Right.
A great console, don't get me wrong. I love the PSP. I love the PSP.
You love the PSP.
I think the PS Vita is also like still to this day one of the best handheld consoles if you still have one. But that's fascinating. I love that. Now we're obviously talking about the game Yoshi today, a game that dates all the way back to 1992, right? It's the 30th anniversary of this game, as we were talking about a little bit earlier. Not Yoshi's first appearance in gaming, but his first major title, his own title. Barry, did you have any experience playing this game back when it first came out?
Yeah, I did. Well, again, I didn't have an NES at this time, but I did go to friends' houses. I played Super Mario World at friends' houses. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And to find out Yoshi had an NES game, I was like, oh, this is great. And I didn't play it at launch. I played it at a friend's house. They also had Yoshi's Cookie.
Cookie, that was a great one, yeah.
And it's one of those instances in my life where I couldn't remember which was which because it was just, we put them in, we played them, and they're both puzzle games. So I was like, which one was which? And I didn't remember, but I just remember not terribly liking it. Like it was one of those things where as a kid I was just like, coming off Super Mario World and playing with Yoshi that way, I'm like, really? And it's not that I didn't like puzzle games. I think Wario's Woods is one of the greatest NES games. I had so much fun with that game. That was a puzzle game in the last North American release official, and especially from Nintendo. And I loved that game. So it's like, why this one? The mechanics to it just never gripped me as a kid. And revisiting
it's very simple, right?
It's very simple.
It's a much more simple game. We talked about this during the gameplay segment as well. The difference, which we can get into because that's for our patrons. So if you're listening to this, the difference between a game like Wario's Woods and Yoshi is, I would say Wario's Woods is way more complicated to the point where when we first started playing it, we were like, I don't know about this. What the fuck is going on? You can kick blocks, pick up blocks, drop them down, put them forward. Like it's got the controls of like a fucking fighting game in a puzzle game. And in spite of that, the more we played, the more we were like, one more game.
Oh yeah.
One more game.
It was
one
addictive.
More game. It was great. I loved it. And I'm curious though, Barry, for you, did you have an affinity towards puzzle games back in the day, or was it more about adventures, RPGs, that sort of thing?
Adventure, RPG have always been my go-to. I mean, even back then, I loved, Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy and Zelda, of course. And I still always love platforming games. I grew up on platforming games, but puzzle games were always something special to me. I mean, obviously, things like Tetris were
Yeah.
huge. My family was all addicted to Tetris, and
Tetris, which
especially
one's that?
puzzle.
Which one
Yeah,
is
which
that?
was that?
The blocks.
That's the block.
Blocks,
The block.
blocks.
Oh,
Yeah.
Minecraft. Minecraft?
No,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Minecraft.
Russian
Minecraft from space.
Yeah,
from
Minecraft
space.
space.
And even like board puzzle games, like board games like Mastermind, my family would always play, which was trying to guess the colors in the right order and all that stuff. Kind of like Wordle, but with colors.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where I did enjoy a lot of puzzle games. One of my favorite Game Boy games is Kirby Star Stacker, and I loved that so much that when I found out there was a Super Famicom version, I actually got the ROM and and played the Japanese version because I loved that game so
amazing.
much.
Do you
But
have a Super Famicom? You own one?
I do. I actually don't. That's one of the few consoles I don't have at the moment.
I want one so bad.
They're easily obtainable, and I don't have the space, so I haven't got it. I have a Satellaview waiting for a Super Famicom to go on top of it. But I don't have a Super Famicom.
The more research we do and the more experience we have into Nintendo games, it's amazing the number of pieces of machinery that didn't make it stateside.
Yeah.
That were just like way ahead of their time, like internet-based add-ons to consoles where you could play. We did a game recently that I think it was Wario's Woods actually had the net play capabilities that you could play online in tournaments and everything. Barry, do you remember the name of that console? I'm putting you on the spot here, but
You're talking about the Famicom network adapter that was an add-on to the NES, well, the Famicom.
I think so. There was a specific
used-
name for it that I can't remember. I'm looking into my notes from Wario's Woods and I can't seem to find it. But yeah, no, it was just amazing reading up on it and finding that they had these like tournaments that would go on and online play and updates like downloadable content, things that we never had stateside that we wouldn't get in as commonplace in the gaming community until like post 2000.
Well, the Famicom network, system, and the Super Famicom one had it too, where they used actual cards. Those were used mainly for banking because it was cheaper for people to, have a Famicom, which was a family computer,
Right.
and this add-on than to buy a personal computer. So it was used for banking and most notably horse betting. And I think up until like 20.
Ride like the wind, bullseye.
You're a good podcast.
Nay.
I think up to 2016, the Super Famicom servers were still up, and people were using Super Famicoms with the adapter to, gamble on horse racing.
And people were keeping that updated.
Yeah, they were keeping it updated.
Wow.
Like
Is this-
officially.
Is this the adapter where you could go into a game store and like load up a cartridge with games and bring that back and play them on the Famicom?
No, that's the Satellaview.
Oh, okay.
That was the Satellaview.
Yeah, so many
Learning
of those
so much.
accessories. Yeah, honestly, a true historian, and it makes sense, obviously, why we said we wanted to get into this.
Yeah.
Your association with Premium Edition Games. Tell us a little bit about Premium Edition Games. I know you just launched your Series 4. I think for a person like you who is into the physical media, knowing that there are a lot of indie games that don't have the capability to get a game published physically, you're going out there and helping them out. Tell us a little bit about the company, what you do, and what we can expect from you in the coming months.
Sure. So Premium Edition Games, we founded about just over 2 years ago now. And what we do is, like you said, we're a physical publisher, so we talk to different indie developers and developers that have their game only available digitally, and we release them out physically. But we don't just release, here's a bare bone release. We wouldn't be called Premium Edition if we did that. So all of our releases come with a full color manual because we loved playing games back in the day, reading the manual on the car ride home. We wanted to bring that back. Two-sided inlays. So you don't open up a Switch case and just get that cheap white. We want art in there. All come with slip covers. We've just upgraded the quality of our slip covers. They're nice and thick now, and the glossy. They've got the matte finish. They've got foil on them, and then they also come with the challenge card. And what the challenge card is on one side is a beautiful piece of art, and on the other side is a developer challenge where the developer tasks all the gamers that play the game to do a specific task. Should any of our gamers do that and submit it online, share it, send us an email with their order number, their address, and their submission link, we will mail them a physical patch. in the mail
Oh,
as our way of
that's
saying
cool.
thank you for free. It's your physical achievement. It's a way to, wear a badge of honor, like I completed this, I did this. And if you don't want to wear it, you can put it in the case and complete your game. So we do that as just our way of getting the gamers involved. And we know, like we had a conversation at the beginning of this segment where we talked about how we have too many games, not enough time, a lot of games sitting on the shelf, they're never opened.
Right.
We feel so strongly about these titles we release. We want everybody to open them. We want everybody to enjoy them because these are fantastic titles. So that's one of our incentive ways of doing that. We also give you an unboxing patch if you choose to do an unboxing video for the games to show off
cool.
everything. We'll give you, that's a separate patch. We'll ship that as free as a way of saying thank you. Then we also have our retro editions, and our retro editions come in a Super Nintendo or N64 box. Which
This
the same
I
size.
love. This I was looking at on your website. Like that's 100% me. I mean, obviously it's a flashback to seeing that old SNES box was just, it brings back so many sense memories of me of being a kid and getting this new thing, this big chunky. There you go. There's one right there that he's holding up for the camera if you're watching over on YouTube. That's amazing. Now, I've got a question for you, Barry. This may not interest the rest of the world as much as it does me because I work in licensing. I've worked in licensing for a long time. Obviously, you show the package there. You've got Nintendo on the box there. You need to be able to produce physical media that works on the Nintendo Switch. How does that work? What is your communication like with Nintendo? Is this kind of under the radar or not under the radar, but you're just sort of helping out developers? Or are you working in tandem with Nintendo on this?
First off, you can't do like right now you can get like aftermarket NES games, right?
Right.
The play on the NES. It's done aftermarket. Nintendo has nothing to do with it anymore. Same with Game Boy, with Genesis, a lot of the older systems. The Switch is a proprietary card, like the Vita, like the UMDs for the PSP we're talking. So all of those chips are manufactured by Nintendo. So Nintendo has to do it. So what we do is once we sign the contracts, the developers give us the physical publishing rights, and we submit the ROM to Nintendo for what's called lot check. So Nintendo has to look at the ROM we submit and give it the thumbs up, says this is good to go for physical. Once it's cleared, all artwork, and then one of the things we do is we don't repeat art. So the inlay art is different than the retail art, is different than the manual art, than the challenge card art, than the retro box art, than the soundtrack art, whatever. Every art piece is different. All that has to be submitted to Nintendo. We submit it all to Nintendo for Nintendo's approval. If they don't like something on the art, they'll get back to us. The manual has to be submitted to Nintendo. They read the manual. They make sure it's okay. So we double check with Nintendo 100% of the way. So every release we do is not only manufactured by Nintendo, the carts, but they've approved everything. Now we get all their stuff elsewhere. But
how stringent are they? Do they live up to the reputation?
Our first release, Super Blood Hockey, it took over 2 months to get through lot check because they kept sending it back and they found weird little bugs. Like if you have a second controller plugged in and you're holding like up L, R, and B at the same time as you're trying to play, it creates this weird bug that no one's naturally going to do, but they found it. So we had to go back to the developer and say, this is a weird bug Nintendo found. You have to fix this, so otherwise they won't approve it. So they are very strict about it, and that's good. That means the copy you're going to get is going to be as bug-free as possible. And one of the things, we talk about physical media, one of the main draws of physical media is preservation. Right now the 3DS and the Wii U eShops are going down, and people are panicking, and it's almost like impulse buying, like panic buying. Like I wasn't going to get this game, but I have no choice. I have to buy it now. We hate that. But what we do is we want to make sure all of our releases are complete on cart, as complete as can be. So for right now, we have Series 4 up, which is Wonderling DX, which we signed when it was just Wonderling, but we waited and made sure that the DX added levels, added content is all on the cart for you, so you're getting the complete game. And that is it's almost like Super Meat Boy with a little bit of auto running, but it also has a bunch of hidden secrets and strategies, and it's a puzzle platformer, and it's really out of this world with tons of levels and tons of content, and
now,
it's really there.
Do you seek these developers out, or do they come to you? I'm sure it starts out with you kind of pitching them, and now that you've developed a name for yourself, it's probably a little bit of both. But how does that process work out?
It's a mix of both. If we see a game we like, we'll reach out, and if we can, work out a deal, great. But one thing is we have to play all the games. So we won't sign a game unless we've played it and we've loved it. because we have to stand behind it, right? We're not going to say, here's a turd of shit, buy it from them. No, we're going to be like, no, this game is fantastic.
Wait. What does this turd of shit look like?
I don't know. Wait a
I'm
second.
kind of interested in this turd of shit.
This is a pretty good catchphrase.
I hear if you polish it, it'll shine pretty bright.
If you polish it right, you might find a piece of corn. But we definitely talk with all the developers, and everyone's different. We give timelines. We move slowly. So if a developer says, hey, we need you to put it out right this second, we can't. Well, we have to apologize and say we can't do that. So as long as they're okay with us going when we're going. But one of the things we do is we want to make sure the releases are what the developer wants too. So not only does everything go by Nintendo, it goes by the developers. And the developers tell us, like with the retro editions, we ask them, what do you want? As long as it fits in the box and it's affordable, we could do it. What do you want in the box? So if they say, I want a soundtrack, I'd love a soundtrack, we do it. If with Phenotopia Awakening, part of Series 3, the developer wanted a chibi keychain. That's what I wanted in the box. That's what's in the box. So we asked the developers, we want to make sure that the version that they've pictured in their head is the version that goes to our customers. We really want them to be as involved as possible. Everything is set up. We have a board where they get to see all the art as it happens. If they say, oh, move it a little to the left or down, or oh, it would be great if we can get this character on the cover or whatever, we facilitate and we'll make sure that they're happy. And
what is your involvement directly with them? Do you manage some of the design, or are you primarily a connector of people, kind of the maestro of the situation, putting them in touch with designers and that sort of thing?
No, that would be our CEO Jeff. He's head of production and he does all of that. He works with our team of developers, as well as our team of designers, and he makes sure all that works. He's like, if you look and say, wow, that looks fantastic, I can't take credit at all. That's him, and him and our team.
You could, and we believe
could,
you, maybe.
But I would be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of person.
Okay. Well, that's not for us to say, but yeah.
But what one of the things I do is I do talk with the developers. I reach out to a lot of developers and say, hey, let's talk. Meeting with them and sitting and discussing our thing, what we can do, and working with them afterwards, and keeping the ball rolling, and getting to make sure the contracts are good, and we really want to do right by them. So that part is awesome. That's just one of the things I do, but that is one of the things that's just truly special to me, because I'm not talented. I can't program. So I envy all of these developers.
You and Andrew have a lot in common, actually. I'm seeing this more and more.
First of all, Barry's way more talented than I am. Thank you very much. How dare you? Insult our guest by comparing him to me.
Barry, you've got to, so you can find, if anything you're hearing out there as the listener, you can find them premiumeditiongames.com, also at Premium Edition 1 on Twitter. You guys recently announced your Series 4, which is a collection of new games and opportunities and options to buy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you can find in there and where people can go to find out more?
Yeah, so like I said, Wonderling DX is one of our titles that's out now. It's a puzzle platformer and a ton of fun. There is a demo on the eShop, so you can give it a try. And then we also have Rain on Your Parade, which is a title that I hadn't heard of before, and a lot of people hadn't, because there's so many games released in the eShop, they kind of just like sink, and unless they're like really hit it out of the park, a lot of people miss these games. And this game is in the vein of Katamari Damacy or Untitled Goose Game. You're a cardboard cloud suspended by string, and you are literally ruining everybody's day. You are an asshole. And you get to do this in myriad of ways. It's not just raining. You get other elemental powers. You get like winds and tornadoes, and you get lightning bolts.
Is there a way that you can just kind of like show up in a crowd of people and tell them about how poor your day's going? That's usually what I do to ruin people. I just kind of show up. I'm like, is everyone else just feeling a little off today?
Really,
that's how
you really are the cardboard cloud.
The cardboard cloud podcast.
Yeah. Hey guys. Oh crap.
I'm just constantly damp for some reason. Just walking into places. Yeah. Both of those games sound fantastic. And I know you guys have announcements that you do on your YouTube channel as well.
Yes.
You can, if you're listening there, you can go check it out. I highly recommend it. Look, if you're watching this over on YouTube and you can see Barry's background there, he's got a ton of physical media. He's a collector. sure it's coming from a place of love, and he's applying his knowledge and know-how to this. So definitely go check them out. But before we obviously say goodbye, I want to talk a little bit more about Yoshi. It's the game of the week that we're going to be playing here. Now, you mentioned, Barry, playing this as a kid was kind of like touch and go. You'd play it at a friend's place and everything. As a kid, we kind of just found whatever way we could to play the games that we didn't have, right? At a friend's place, whatever it is. And in that way, our experiences with a lot of games were kind of limited. But now that it's it's on Nintendo Switch Online, it's available for anyone to play who has a subscription to that. Going back to it, did you feel justified in your kind of disdain for the game, or your cold feeling towards the game?
Disinterest?
For your your disinterest for the game, sure.
Disinterest is big, and I felt that immediately as I started playing. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this.
Yes.
And I played it a little bit. And I mean, it's not that it's a bad game. And if you're a diehard Yoshi fan, like the game Yoshi, and you're like, oh, I love this. This is blasphemy. But there's no shame. There's no problem with that. Everyone has different tastes. My favorite game could be one that you say, oh, I hate that game. And that's fine. We all have different games that we love and enjoy. And don't let what anyone else says deter you. For me, it was simple. It didn't hold my attention. And it was kind of rhythmic, and it got to the point when I was just like, all right, just fill up, just end the game. I'm done. Like, I've had enough. I've got my fill. There's not a lot to it. It's very simple, and it was designed that way. I think it was, hey, Yoshi is so popular with Super Mario World. How do we get that on the NES? Because the NES can't handle Super Mario World. Let's get it on there any way we can. And the Game Boy, too. Let's try to get Yoshi. Let's capitalize on his popularity. So I think that's really where this stemmed from.
That era of gaming was always so fascinating to me, because it was like Nintendo was simultaneously releasing games only on the SNES and only on the NES, like at the same time, like backwards looking to a past console, which is a concept that weirdly we've kind of come around to again with like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X as well. Games are now still coming out on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 in a way that is sort of reminiscent of those earlier days of gaming, not quite creating exclusive like big AAA games that would go there, but the game companies have not forgotten about those consoles in the way that we used to just want to immediately move on, like from PlayStation 2 to 3, 3 to 4, that sort of thing. But I agree with you a little bit, actually quite a bit, in terms of the gameplay being very simple. However, I did find myself coming around on the game the more that we played it. And I know, Andrew, I usually joke that actually it's not a joke, it's very true. When I beat you in a game, I like the game more.
Yes, when you're good at a game, you're like, hey, this game's not bad.
Game's great.
Yeah, I think this game is the best game of all time.
The best games in the world are the ones I'm really good at.
I know.
So I think. But I did find, we put the game down, we played it in a bite-sized chunk, and in my mind, I was like, there is something to this gameplay that would make it great for like an iPhone game or something like that.
Well,
something that I'm not going to be, picking up to specifically play for hours on end, but a little kind of like get me through the next 10, 15 minutes. I wouldn't mind that. But we, like, as amateurs in the game, we played each other, and then to test it out, when we did the single player portion, we went to the highest difficulty, and I wiped the floor with it
in like 2.5 minutes.
And like, not because I'm good at the game, but because the game, as you mentioned, Barry, is just so simple.
It is.
It's hard to compare it, but I do applaud Nintendo for getting creative in the way they built their puzzle games, like this one, where you're controlling Mario, who's controlling the stacks or the columns of the monsters that reach the bottom, similar to Wario's Woods, where you play as Toad and you're moving the things from place to place, as opposed to something like Tetris, where there's an invisible hand that just kind of moves the blocks. Do you give it any benefit for that, or maybe the production, or even the audio design, Barry?
I mean, for what they had at the time, it definitely felt like something they threw together pretty quickly. I think they did a great job. Games back then, a lot of them were simpler. This almost feels like a Game & Watch game. Like, it really could have just been a Game & Watch game.
Yeah.
And they put a new coat of paint on it, and they sold it. And if you look at the cover, you couldn't tell it's a puzzle game. It's literally just Yoshi.
Yes.
You could tell they were just marketing it towards people who fell in love with Yoshi and wanted more Yoshi. Oh, Yoshi's on the Nintendo, great. I applaud them. Nintendo is always doing things outside the box, and they're taking a simple thing, which is falling platforms or blocks, and they made it something unique, which is again something that they've done through the history. Wario's Woods is the same thing, but very unique. Kirby Star Stacker is like that, very unique. They're always trying new things, and when they take Tetris under their belt and under their wing, they always do unique things. Tetris DS had all those crazy, Nintendo themed modes, and Tetris 99 on the Switch, of course, crazy. So I applaud Nintendo for doing that. It doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's just not a game for me.
Barry's getting the true retrograde experience where we take something that someone loves out there from their childhood and we go, yeah, I don't know if it's that good. And then, that's truly the retrograde experience.
It turns out retro gamers take things very personally. Very personally, often. And, when we started this podcast as well, we talk about this all the time, going back and playing some retro games. The whole premise of the podcast was to play these games that we loved as kids and see if they hold up in the modern day. Now, the interesting thing is there's a line that you can walk, which is the more simple you are, sometimes the better you age as a game, not as a human being.
Like Johnny Cash.
Like Johnny Cash, yeah, you walk the line. So that's to say that a game like this that doesn't take a very big swing is completely playable in the modern day. Same with something like Excite Bike. We played Excite Bike and I was super excited about that game, but goddamn if after 15 minutes I wasn't kind of done with it. And this is sort of comparable in a way where there's nothing wrong with it. But am I going to pick this up instead of something else?
Well, and that's incredible that we brought up Wario World, a couple of times already, because that is the thing that eats this.
Wario's Woods.
Wario's Woods, because that's the thing that eats this experience a little bit. If it didn't exist, you'd be like, hey, this is pretty good.
Right.
But something came out only a couple of years afterwards that is just better and more, developed and more diverse than this game entirely.
I'd also kind of rather play like Dr. Mario, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good example. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Do you have any other, I know you mentioned Kirby's, but do you have any other favorite puzzle games from the era? Maybe like a mascot themed game, if not even a puzzle one, but a game that could have been seen as a sort of shoe-in. I'll use Sonic Spinball as an example that I actually really enjoyed. Do you have any examples of that you can bring up?
I have two. One is Kirby's Avalanche on the Super Nintendo, which is Puyo Puyo, but I didn't know it was Puyo Puyo at the time because they didn't release it over here, so I played it as Kirby's Avalanche.
Exactly. Like Doki Doki Panic. We didn't know that was a whole different game out there. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other one, which I don't see talked about nearly as often as it should be, and that's Panic Bomber, which over here released only on the Virtual Boy, but I think it was released on not at least on one other system, maybe the Turbo in Japan, and that's Bomberman's puzzle game. And that again has the falling blocks and you going against bosses, and it's a ton of fun. And I probably have clocked well over 40 hours into that on the Virtual Boy. So I could tell you your eyes are fine afterwards.
I was going to say on the Virtual, were you getting up to take breaks every 15 minutes as recommended, or what, 4 minutes? What do they say on the Virtual Boy?
Insane.
It's like 15, but I did it at night. So like, as a kid when you'd be like, oh, go to bed, and you see like, I'm going to go under the covers with a flashlight, or I'm going to sit there and play Game Boy with like those weird attachments. I did that stuff too, but once I had a Virtual Boy, I said, I don't need any of this stuff. So I had it by my bed, and I would just, because it's all inside, so I just put it to my face, and no one can see that I'm playing. So now I'm playing Virtual Boy, no one has any idea, and then when I'm done, I pull my eyes back, and it's already dark. So I left the dark environment to another dark environment, and I just went
You're waking up in the morning with red eyes and a sunburn. Your mom's like, what the fuck is going on? I love that. It's always great to talk to someone who has a clear affinity for retro games, and not just someone who's looking back as an historian who didn't actually play through them. Those childhood experiences with those games is kind of what makes us, when we go back and play some of those earlier games, it's sometimes heartbreaking to play a retro game in the modern day. We worry about ruining it. I know Joe and Mac was one for me that I fucking loved as a kid. We did recently on the podcast, and I'm like, I don't really want to play this game anymore. So we do reach that. Obviously, the reason why we're kind of talking around Yoshi, we'd like to spend more time talking about the game itself, but listeners, it is bare bones. And if you haven't had a chance to go play it yet, like we mentioned, it's on the Nintendo Switch Online. Find a way to play it there and give it a shot. But I'd like to get into our reviews of the game, if you guys are cool with that.
Sure, absolutely.
So we're going to start, as we typically do on this podcast. We take a look back at the games that we used to play when we were kids. Usually it's something we have an affinity towards one way or another. We rate and review the games as we remember them as kids. Then we play the game, come back and rate and review the game as it holds up in the modern day against the likes of modern games. So Andrew, why don't you start us off? Give us your rating rating out of 4 bits based on your memory of the game. First of all, did you play it as a kid, or was this?
No, this is the first time I played it.
So you're going to be giving your impression of what you think you would have thought of it had you played it as a little child Andrew.
Absolutely, I got to use my Imaginarium. Okay, so
Dr. Majorium.
Yes.
Dr. Majorium's very own.
Weird movie. Wasn't that like Dustin Hoffman or something like
There
that?
was the Imaginarium of there was Dr. Majorium's Magic Emporium, and there was the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus.
Yes,
there's
which
the Heath Ledger.
Are very wildly different movies, and if you like,
Yes.
you know, Blockbuster still exists or something like that, and a kid's like, "This is the movie I wanted to watch," and they're watching the movie that like Heath Ledger made after he died or
Yes.
something like that, and you're like, "Oh God,
Yes.
this is terrible." Okay,
Weird as hell.
so all right, so this is. This would have been tough for me as a kid. I did like puzzle games, but I don't know if this was presenting much more than, you know, Tetris was nearly a perfect game. Now, this had mascots that I liked and characters that I really had an affinity towards, but I don't think it would have held me as much as more than we did today. Like, I think you would have played it a lot because it was on, you know, a Game Boy or something like that.
Andrew, if video games could hold you, I would never need
Never be alone.
anything else in my life. I would never be alone.
I'm going to give this a pretty low score, but I'm going to give it a 2.5.
Okay.
Just because it was totally functional and I would have played it because it was available in front of me, but it wouldn't have held my attention more like some of the games that we have, you know, really locked into.
Sure. I'll go next on that one. I did play this game very, very sparingly as a kid. Another one.
Sparingly, eh?
Sparingly.
Sparingly?
Nope, sparingly.
Okay,
I was
you fought it.
boxing it.
Yeah, you fought
I was
it.
boxing it.
Okay,
We would
interesting. I
box
didn't
each
know
other
that.
as we
All
went. Much like Barry and
draw.
myself as we in the schoolyard before we found the flagpole. My experiences with it were limited, but that was by design. I booted this game up, and I talked about this on the Dr. Mario episode as well, where like I did not love that game, even though I know objectively it was a good game. Puzzle games, to me, it was Tetris and nothing else. That was the only way my mind can understand a puzzle game. I was relatively young at the time, playing it soon after its release, but this game was simple enough for me to get, but also because I saw falling blocks, I was like, I'd rather just play Tetris. So I didn't spend a ton of time with it, and my memory of it had basically all but faded until I was looking up releases and anniversaries and stuff, and this game came up. I was like, oh, fuck that game, right? It's on the NES Online. I'm giving this one a 1.5 out of 4.
Really?
It just, puzzle games to me meant absolutely nothing as a kid, with one exception, and that was Tetris. And there was a 4, and there was everything else, which was like sub 2. So for me, I didn't have much to say about this game as a kid.
Cruel and judicious child you were. Huh?
I was very
Wow.
cruel and very judicious. I got
Interesting.
that from my parents.
Yes, okay.
Barry, what about you? Your rating out of 4 bits based on your memory of the game as a kid.
As a kid, I think I'd have to give it a 1.5. And that's
okay.
because, well, even though I didn't own it, when I went to a friend's house and they, you know, we brought out the shoebox with all the NES cartridges there.
Nice.
I didn't want to look at it. I didn't even want to, like, there was always a better game. There was always a more fun game to pick up and play to me than that. So I appreciate what they did, you know, and it was fun the few times I did play it. Again, like I couldn't even tell you, you know, if before doing this episode, I couldn't tell you which one was Yoshi and which one was Yoshi's Cookie.
Right.
Like they were so ingrained as 2 cash-in puzzle games that weren't Tetris. You know, obviously, and it never really gripped me. So I hate to say it.
1.5 makes
1.5.
sense. No, it's the kind of thing as well. Like, you hate giving a Nintendo game like this, especially a Game Freak game. Like this is Game Freak, right? Giving it a low score is just like it hurts a little bit. But yeah, this is them spiting themselves. As you mentioned, Barry, they just wanted to get a mascot onto the NES, and it feels rushed, and I don't want to be the one carrying that banner saying it's a good game when I know that it wasn't.
Okay, you're looking at me right here. I was the one that gave it a higher score. Like, you don't have to like say it like I'm not here.
I'm just thinking maybe we can go over this after the podcast, Andrew, but I have some thoughts on your reviews and just the way you've been
Time to get that circle together in the schoolyard again. Okay, so let's get to the modern score then, okay?
Yes.
This is where the score comes down for me from that 2.5. Okay, is it a 1? Is it a 1.5? That's kind of where I'm at right now, because it gets functional, and if you want to play it, it's good. And we play some games here where they're like genuinely broken, or like, especially those late PlayStation 1 games.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh God, I don't even know if this is playable anymore. The camera just turns into a corner and you don't know where you're going anymore.
Yes.
This still does what it says it's going to do. It's just not good.
Sure.
Or interesting. You know, like you could play for 15 minutes and that's about it when you drop it. So, I don't know. I can't believe I think probably give it a 1.5, which is kind of crazy.
That's fine. That's what we gave it in the
I know, but like I totally expected to get a little bit lower, and maybe it should. But for me, I like puzzle games, so 1.5 for me.
Yeah. No, I thought you were feeling bad because you gave it a lower score. I totally agree with you on this one. It's,
really?
It's infinitely playable.
Okay.
I enjoyed the time I spent with it.
It's not infinitely playable.
It's definitely not infinitely playable.
But you said
but it's certainly playable.
it's finitely playable.
It's very finitely playable. What is the word for when it's playable for 20 to 30 minutes? What is that infinite? Is that infinite? Oh, Mikey.
Technically,
Yeah.
somebody could play it indefinitely.
Oh,
That's
that's
true.
You're right.
That's true. And that person I would love to have on this podcast as well to ask who hurt them as a child.
Huge bags under their eyes, hand in their forehead, just like, what?
His name is Prometheus. We're like, what happened? Like, everyone says it was the liver, but like the gods punished me by making me play
I'm
this
a
game.
modern day Sisyphus.
Well,
okay.
Andrew, Prometheus is the better example. You can't metaphorize my Prometheus example by bringing up
I was
Sisyphus.
bringing up a separate one.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I had nothing to do with you.
Oh.
I wasn't even listening.
Often my thoughts about you on this podcast as well. My desires if I had them. But no,
Very good,
I
Mikey.
agree. I spent a lot of time thinking about this as we were talking. While you guys were saying whatever you were going to say, I was thinking, what am I going to get this game? But I'm with you. It's a 1.5 out of 4.
Really?
I'm staying the same weight. I didn't hate the game. I just think that for puzzle games of this era, it's totally playable, maybe not infinitely, not quite as good as a lot of the other puzzle games that have come to pass since then. So if I want to boot up a retro puzzle game, I've got a lot of other options there. But for me, it's a 1.5, slightly less than the average of just like a 2.
Yeah.
But still good. I still
Wow.
enjoyed my time with it.
Okay, Barry.
I'm actually going to drop my score to a 1.
Yeah. See,
and
that's
the reason for that is, when I would go to a friend's house and we pull out the little shoebox and we'd have different games to play from. Now that shoebox is more like rooms. Go into which games you want to play, which games you want to play. There's so many games that have come out
Olympic-sized
since.
pool.
Right.
So many games, and there's so many, to me, better choices. The game is, like you said, 100% playable. It's serviceable. It does what it sets out to do, and you could have some fun in it. But for me, there's just so many better puzzle games, just that genre, and even on the system alone, let alone the Super Nintendo and the Game Boy and the Virtual Boy. Even I play Panic Bomber over this 100 times over.
Right.
That's the problem, is that when a game is coming out there and is revolutionary, it's very hard to stand the test of time, because when you do something like that, there's going to be imitators.
Right.
Tetris is a rare example of it standing the test of time, and Yoshi is an imitator. Like so many others have imitated Tetris in some way, shape, or form. So it's really interesting to see, and I think this is kind of one of those that's 30 years is nothing to scoff at, but it's also like, if I said, hey, name your top 10, puzzle games, I don't think many people will have Yoshi on there.
Yeah.
If I said, name your top 10 Nintendo puzzle games, I don't think Yoshi's going to be on a lot of them. I think a lot of people have forgotten about it, or they might even confuse it with Yoshi's Cookie like I did.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. No, that's totally fair. A 1 is warranted as well. I think, especially as someone who grew up playing more puzzle games than at least I myself had, you have more of a reference point as well.
Yeah.
It always comes down to, if you wanted to play this in the modern day, what would your other options be? And it seems like they are plentiful. Especially for a puzzle game like this. Although it had its interesting moments, just not something that I think it did.
What was the moment that was interesting?
The moment was when I beat you 3-0.
Oh, okay, well, there we go.
That was a very interesting moment for everyone.
That would do it. Yeah, I guess so. Well, there we go. So that's a combined score of 7 out of 16. Am I doing that score right? I think I am. 7 out of 16 canonically for our scores, but yeah, you know what? It's a weird mix, because there's sometimes where games are not that great, but you're like, oh, I see what it's going for, so we're going to give it a higher score because that was really cool and push things along. This wasn't one of them. It's playable, but still not that interesting.
Andrew, it was actually a 7 out of 16. It was a 2. You gave it a 2.5 in the retro score?
I did say 7 out of
2.5.
16.
Oh, I thought you said 7.5.
No, I said 7.
No,
well, Andrew, it's because I don't listen to you. That's why. That's why.
Sisyphusian task right there.
We had to bump those scores up to our awards calculators. We've got a whole panel of judges who give these games these awards as we go. And I think it's about time to head over to the awards ceremony. So Barry, I know you're new to this process, but we got to walk over to the red carpet. We're gonna let the paparazzi take the thing. So we're just gonna stand by and let them do their thing.
You've been waiting for it all year. The most glamorous award ceremony of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, the Grady's.
Oh, okay.
Wow,
Gorgeous.
beautiful.
Todd
Yeah,
Snaps
amazing.
here in full effect, taking our picture. It's been a nice little entry.
You said out of 16, though. I'm trying to put in my head. There's 3 of us, and 4 was the top. Wouldn't that be out of 12?
Canonically, for the sake of our
For the sake of the awards, we do out of 16 for the retro and current score between the two of us.
4 8s, 12, 16. And
Gotcha.
then we'll add your scores into the.
It's
the
an
scoring.
honorarium mix that we keep.
Gotcha.
In the
Okay, so
halls of
that
fame.
makes sense
But
now. See, I'm just trying
Because
to
we're bad at math, we can't do the awards that way.
Yeah. We have a magic spreadsheet that calculates that for us, and the spreadsheet, much like the banker in Deal or No Deal, is not a nice person. You really have to work on their terms. Now we got Elliot coming. Elliot is our producer. Elliot's got the envelope that tells us dressed up like Yoshi, which is adorable,
nice.
but just
Good.
green paint.
Yes.
That's it.
He's also got a fat guy in overalls on his back.
Got a fat guy overall.
Wow. Where'd you get that guy?
Where'd you get him, Elliot?
Put him back.
Put him back. Put
Put him
that
back.
tongue back in your mouth as well. It's not a good look on
Disgusting.
you.
I don't
Not
like
a
it.
good look.
Don't like it.
Okay, so Elliot's reaching into his envelope and he's going to let us know the awards that this game won. Oh wow! No awards, no awards for this game. It didn't get. Unfortunately, it's not a member of our Hall of Fame. I was wondering if it was gonna make.
You thought it was
going
going
to
to get 14 out of 16?
I did. Now, typically, Barry, what happens is when it doesn't fall into any of the awards categories, we are each given an envelope which has a name of an award that we're going to give this game, and that is is something that usually has a little bit to do with the game. Obviously, we don't make them up. The awards ceremony provides them to us.
Right.
But Andrew, you've got your envelope.
my
Do you want to let us
envelope
know what awards this game won?
This is going to get the Switch 'em Up award. Well, that's weird. Switch 'em Up. Oh, like Mario when he's rotating things.
Oh.
It's not the game we thought. They switched it up on us.
Because it's not Yoshi's Cookie.
It's not Yoshi's Cookie.
I've got an envelope here. I'm gonna open this one up. This is the name. It's the Rotten Yoshi Egg Award because he laid a stinker on this one. I'm so sorry.
Which is so sad that in this game you got an egg and it opened up and it's a dead Yoshi and you're like,
that
oh
means
my god,
there's a dead body in it.
a bunch of children just horrified for the rest of their life. I tell you what, Barry, you open that shoebox, you wouldn't remember that. You'd remember that's the one where I see the dead Yoshi, isn't it? Oh my god, I don't want to play this game.
That's amazing. Barry, do you have an envelope in your hands? You want to let us know what awards you're giving this game?
It's interesting that I got a different one. Let's see what this is.
Oh yeah, okay, interesting.
The Corporate Cash Grab Award.
Oh, the Corporate Cash Grab Award.
Kind of makes sense.
It kind of makes sense. I can see it. It's Yoshi being Yoshi.
Yeah, that was weird. When you open the envelope, I heard cha-ching. That was strange.
You know what? The Monopoly man is in attendance for these awards. He's shaking his head.
Drives off in his little car.
No, he's driving off in his little thimble, I think.
Oh, his thimble. Yeah,
The thimble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Barry, thank you so much once again for joining us. That was a ton of fun. I appreciate your insight on the realm of video games and trying to bring that retro feel to something modern like the Nintendo Switch, as well as to bring some history to the industry that we love so much. We based a podcast around it, and we love having guests like yourself. Anything else you want to send people towards? I know we talked about premiumeditiongames.com, at Premium Edition 1 on Twitter, and at Hawk Hellfire if you want to follow Barry specifically on Twitter. Anything else you want to send people towards?
Yeah, like I said, premiumeditiongames.com. Make sure to go over there. June 10th is the closing of the pre-orders for Wonderling DX and Rainier Parade. The retro editions are limited to 500, so if you are interested, the sooner the better. The other ones are open pre-order, so we want to make sure everybody gets a copy. And if you pre-order with us on our website only, you'll get an exclusive pre-order bonus dog tag. And the dog tags are printed. Hey. They are beautiful and they are free.
Nice.
They're our little way of saying thank you very much for supporting us. And stay tuned to all our socials. Sign up for our newsletter. We have a Discord, all that jazz, because we have a lot of exciting announcements coming up and a lot of stuff that we showed off in our latest Direct that we'll be talking more about soon.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. Well said. And again, thank you for the insight on all the games that we were talking about this week. What a time.
What a time. What a
loved
game. Barry, you're the best. Thank you so much for coming on. We love every single one of you, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. My name's Andrew Bascom, and with me, as always, is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Aaronworth.
This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over. Want more Retrograde in your life? You can visit our website for show notes at theretrogradepod.com. Follow us on Twitter at Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy, and the podcast at Retrograde Pod.
Or Instagram at the Retrograde Podcast.
For bonus episodes, check us out at patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast.
Send your questions and business inquiries to the retrogradepodcast@gmail.com.
See you next week, D-pads.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
That's for next episode for the Discovery. We're depraved morons.